It is time to level up our mental health once again, and we are going across the pond for this episode to talk about two huge topics: social anxiety and confidence. I had originally connected with this week's guest after learning something about him. After spending his first 28 years becoming an expert at avoiding public speaking, presenting, and in fact, speaking to groups of more than 2 or 3 people, he knows firsthand how much this fear can hold you back. Confidence is vital, and that starts with taking care of your mental health. That's what Tom's here to do today, to give you the tips you need to succeed in any industry you're in. But first, let's learn how he podcasts. Tom, which platform do you stream your shows through?
Thanks for having me again, Vincent. And I am all about Apple, so I always go to Apple Music for my podcast.
Me too, just because everything's synced with Apple. They have me for the podcast as well. When in the day do you find yourself listening to your shows?
So it's normally early morning for me, and it just helps me start my day the right way.
Start your day the right way. Of course, we both have different morning routines, but they're very vital to our day's success. And you listen to in the car, in the house, in the headset?
Yeah, so sometimes put it on in the car in the way to the gym in the morning, and then finish off the episode in the gym, and then a little bit on the way home as well.
I love it. Thank you for sharing how you podcast, Tom. I would love to feature you on a show. All of you listeners, let me know how you podcast by emailing info@vincentalancy.com, and I will feature you on a show. With that, though, it is time to talk all things mental health. And this week's guest is here for another episode of A Mental Health Break. I am your host and author of the books Mental Health Week and Mr. Lancy Talks Mental Health, Vincent A. Lancy. You could check both of those books out on Amazon once this episode ends. If it's your first time sitting down with us, I sit down with a mental health advocate or professional each week right here to share their stories relating to mental health and their why relating to mental health advocacy. My why came after I suffered a traumatic brain injury, and we will learn today's why in just a second. And before I bring him on, I want to share that this episode is brought to you by Tampa Counseling and Wellness. They are dedicated to helping individuals looking to positively transform their lives through compassionate counseling and wellness coaching. If you struggle with depression, anxiety, or other mental health issues, call today for a free consultation. Tampa Counseling and Wellness, therapy that inspires change. Tom Bailey is here, and he is also the founder of Succeed Through Speaking, and now is a speaking and confidence coach. As I mentioned, that confidence was not always here. Something that may have surprised you is that he spent almost the first 30 years of his life becoming an expert at avoiding all things public speaking. Staying behind the scenes was his thing because of a fear of public speaking and social anxiety. This left him feeling withdrawn from society and kick-started his mission to overcome his struggles. He now looks to help others do the same professionally, but today he's here on this show to help you, the listeners. Tom, thanks for coming by.
Vincent, thanks again for having me, and such a great introduction. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Would you mind introducing yourself on a personal level to our audience before we dive in and get going on mental health?
Of course, yeah. So Tom Bailey, I'm here in the UK, and I'm the founder of Succeed Through Speaking. And really, this business was born from my own journey, which we'll talk about today. And that's from going from fear of public speaking, social anxiety, to now being a speaking and confidence coach.
You've come a long way from all of your struggles. Can you highlight one of those big struggles that you faced before you had this great confidence and were such a successful coach?
Yeah, so I think it's worth really talking about two, to be honest. So we have got the fear of public speaking, and then we've got social anxiety. I think they're very much linked, and all fit into that area of confidence, self-esteem, self-image. So ultimately, I think for me, social anxiety showed up in social situations, speaking in front of groups of 2 or 3 people. If I was at a family meal or friends evening out, I was always the quietest person in the room. And that's because I was just so self-conscious about other people's opinions of me. And that's where social anxiety comes from. And that then layered on with the fear of public speaking. Again, standing up and speaking in front of a room full of people, I'm just thinking the whole time, what are they thinking of me? What's their opinion? What if I make a mistake? What if I embarrass myself? So yeah, it kind of left me feeling very withdrawn from society.
And from all this social anxiety, what age did you first start experiencing this, you think?
Really, as young as I can remember, hiding behind my mom's leg when she had friends around. Yeah, I was always just the quiet, shy one, and I didn't know it at the time what it was, but now I know it was due to some kind of anxiety around social situations.
Yeah, you mentioned the anxiety, and it's always stemmed for almost your whole life now. Can you describe when you really decided to transform it into mental health advocacy, coaching? This is what you're going to do for your life now.
Yeah, of course. So a lot of coaches in this space end up actually coaching in a space that they have personally had a journey. Um, so for me, the turning point was two things really. And throughout school and university, I could hide in the background. You know, I could almost just get through school by not raising my hands in class and not presenting. But when I got into the real world, get a job, try and make some money, and that's when the fear of public speaking limited me because I couldn't do interviews, I couldn't stand up and speak in front of my teammates, and I was actually made redundant quite early on in my career, unfortunately. And this made me realize that if I'm ever going to be successful, I need to get over this fear of speaking. And just another personal story, just to bring, because it brings it
Please,
to light a
yes.
little bit. I was also asked to speak at my nan's funeral. It was around the same time, actually, the same year. And my mom said, "Look, obviously it'd be great if you can stand up and say a few words," but I just couldn't do it. I couldn't say yes because I was so scared of embarrassing myself again or something like that. And that's something I always regret, and I can never take that back.
Yes, but you learned from it because you never were going to let it happen again. You
No,
wanted to make
exactly.
sure that you're in a position to not only speak for yourself, but now you do so much to help others. There's some stats, don't quote me here, about public speaking being ahead of skydiving, heights,
Mhm.
all of these crazy things people would
Yeah.
rather do instead of public speaking. But you have to do some things in order to take care of your mental health, or you would not be able to have this newfound confidence. Tom, what are a couple things that you do for your mental health? We could talk short term and long term.
Yeah, so I think for me, long term, the biggest turning point for me was to get a coach, to be honest,
Yeah.
because you don't need to battle through this on your own. You don't need to try and figure it all out and stay in the shadows. There's people out there who want to help you, and it's why I'm so passionate about coaching now. Is that if I can just take one person and build their confidence, I feel like I've won in life, to be honest. And so yeah, long term, get yourself a coach and just don't feel like you have to battle through this on your own.
That's the thing in this mental health journey. We are all not alone. What you are going through, chances are someone else has gone through, maybe in a different scenario, but they can teach you, they can help you learn from their story, I should say. Tom,
Mhm.
what are you going to keep doing to raise awareness for mental health?
So for me, it's now the turning point for me. I guess the transformation is the more I speak,
Mhm.
the more I present, the more I do what I'm scared of doing, and the more likely I am to get my story and my message out there. So for me, it's sharing my story. It's coming on podcasts like this. It's going on YouTube. It's speaking on stages. The goal long term is to go back into schools as well. As a volunteer, just in terms of raising awareness for children. And so yeah, that's kind of the next big steps for
Have you
me.
done anything like that yet with students?
Yeah, I've gone back into a couple of schools and I've run a couple of I call them the superhero speakers confidence training for kids.
Okay.
And it was great. I think the challenge is trying to find the time to do it, when you're running a coaching business. But now I'm getting a little bit more stability. It's now, yeah, if I can go back in and just do a day a week or a day a month in schools, that'd be really powerful.
I'm looking forward to seeing all you do. As you know, I also work with students. My latest book, Mental Health Week, it's the go-to book for elementary school students to get
Excellent.
taught the basics of mental health in a fun story. It's something I knew the kids needed right now. I didn't do a big marketing rollout with it because it was more pressing, I feel, to get these kids the book. School just started. Now it's my job to find ways to get it to them. Thank you for such a great episode so far. I would now like to ask you for your take on the Spotlight story. On each episode, me and my guest, we sit down and look at the mental health story of someone else, someone who is famous, to let you, the listeners, know that you are not alone. Even though someone looks healthy or wealthy from the outside, they may not be on the inside too. This one is from another British mental health advocate in Ed Sheeran. This article I read, it talked about the lowest point of his life, where I learned he, quote, had bouts of everything from depression to anxiety, and the lowest point of his mental health came at a high point of his career, believe it or not, in 2015. I'd like to share some quotes. It was down to bad diet, drinking, and then not seeing sunlight at all, that I wasn't exercising. Exercise, I think, is a really effing important thing to keep people happy. I would stay up and drink all night, and then the buses would park underneath the arenas, and I'd sleep on the bus all day, and then wake up and then come out to do the show, drink, get back on the bus. I didn't see sunlight for maybe 4 months. It's all fun and games at the start. It's all rock and roll and it's fun. And then it starts getting just sad. So I think that's probably the lowest that I've been. And I kind of ballooned in weight and I just wasn't healthy. I learned he found himself asking, what's the point? Why am I around? What's the point? During this time, he also had panic attacks while in public places, including the tube, planes, supermarkets, anywhere where there's a lot of people. And I'll share one more quick quote. It's a weird paranoia in me that assuming that everyone's going to be horrible when usually people are nice. There's a lot of powerful thoughts here, Tom. What's your takeaways?
So that's really interesting to hear that. That's the first time I've heard this. And, when we look at Ed Sheeran, not only in the UK, but globally, we see this super confident, amazing, successful, wealthy, musician, artist. You don't see the struggles behind people like this. That's because, we put on a show, don't we? And I always used to do it in front of my friends and family. I'd try and put on this show of confidence, but, back home, I'd then be sat in my room alone, not speaking to anybody. So I guess, it's not always what's on the surface that's actually happening. So I think the takeaway is to, ask questions and ask people if they're okay and just try and make sure that people are actually okay.
You never know what someone is going through. And this is a great example. Like you said, the whole world sees him as this happy guy, but behind the scenes, things may just be different. And that's why we shared these stories. So thank you for your take on that, Tom. And thank you for such an amazing episode. We got right to the point today. You helped everybody give some tips for social anxiety, overcoming that, gaining confidence. What's one more tip you can leave everybody off with, how they can overcome their social anxiety or confidence issues?
Of course, just a real quick one because we didn't dive into the short-term suggestions. So I think for me, it's you need to just get started really, because what I did is I spent 6 years thinking about one day speaking or building my confidence. It's something I put off, and I now know it's due to withdrawal and vulnerability or avoiding vulnerability. So sometimes you just need to take that first step, realize it's not so bad, and then the next step will be easier. And you need to just get into motion, I think, is the best advice I can give.
All right, great advice, I would say. Now tell everybody where they can find you, say hello, look at your website, all of that.
Yeah, of course. So the brand name, I guess, is Succeed Through Speaking. So if you just type that into Google or Instagram or Facebook or anywhere, you'll find me and the coaching business I've got.
Everyone, be sure to go check all that out. Check us out too while you're online at A Mental Health Break on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and on Twitter, because that character limit, we are at Podcasts by Lancey, but at least you get updates from all of my shows. You can find me at Vincent A. Lancey for all social media, YouTube, and my website is vincentalancey.com. Mental Health Week and Mr. Lancey Talks Mental Health are out now. They are on Amazon, so you can get them delivered tomorrow. See you next week on A Mental Health Break. Tom, thanks for stopping by.
Thanks again.